Summer 1976. New York, the city that never slept, suddenly found itself in the grip of an invisible horror. Every night, filled with the noise of cars, the laughter of passers-by and the neon lights of signs, turned into an expectation of danger. At first it seemed random. Lonely couples sitting in parked cars, women returning home late at night. The sounds of gunshots, at first seemingly random, soon became a pattern. People began to understand that someone was deliberately hunting them. The choice of victims was strange and frightening. Young women with long dark hair and their companions, often in couples, sitting in empty parking lots, along quiet streets or near old buildings. Each attack left the city in a panic, and the fear became palpable, like a thick fog over the horizon. People listened to every rustle, checked every dark corner before leaving the house. New York, accustomed to its rhythm and the noise of the metropolis, suddenly froze, feeling the fragility of its usual life. The first widely known victim was Donna Lauria. She was sitting in her car with her friend Jody Valenti, discussing ordinary matters, when a shot rang out. Donna died instantly. Jody miraculously survived. The sound of the shot, sharp and tearing apart the silence of the night, the smell of gunpowder, the empty look of the killer, who dissolved into the darkness. All this was forever imprinted in the memory of the city. This incident became the signal for the beginning of a chain of attacks that soon engulfed the entire metropolis. Soon, letters began to appear. The police and newspapers received messages from the mysterious son of Sam. In them, he claimed that he was acting on the orders of a demon that had possessed his neighbor's dog. The letters were theatrical, strange, full of mockery and threats, and each paragraph added a new layer of horror. Newspapers printed them on the front pages. Radio read the lines out loud, and the city, accustomed to noise and energy, suddenly froze. Residents began to change their habits. Women dyed their hair, trying to become less noticeable. Couples avoided walking after sunset, even holding hands, so as not to show vulnerability. People who had previously been confident in the safety of the neighborhood began to suspect their neighbors. In small cafes, at bus stops, in stores, everyone discussed the news and letters that were published almost daily. Even the most ordinary actions, walking home late, getting into a car with friends, turned into a source of anxiety. Every street, every dark corner could become a trap. The maniac acted chaotically, but his attacks seemed carefully planned. He chose places where no one expected danger. Empty parking lots, narrow alleys, courtyards of old buildings where rarely anyone walked at night. The police tried to map the crimes, analyzed letters, tracked routes, but all in vain. The maniac remained elusive. Each new attack turned into a puzzle for detectives, and the city lived under the weight of uncertainty, not knowing who would be the next victim. Residents began to create their own defense systems. Neighborhood patrols, night calls to relatives, checking doors and windows, streetlights, conversations in cafes and stores. Newspapers published photographs of suspects, police tips and letters from the son of Sam, and each new issue increased the fear. With each new letter and murder, the son of Sam became a symbol of horror. His name was discussed in all neighborhoods. Families, friends, colleagues, school children and students. Newspapers printed sensations. Radio quoted lines from letters, and fear became part of everyday life. People were afraid to go out at night, listen to every rustle. Every shadow was taken as a harbinger of death. New York, accustomed to the constant movement and noise of the metropolis, plunged into anxious anticipation. Barricades of rumors and panic filled the streets. People stopped trusting each other. Their usual life changed forever. Those months became a year when the city lived under the shadow of an unknown killer. Residents understood. Evil can hide behind the most ordinary door, behind a neighbor's smile or a quiet look of a stranger. The son of Sam kept the city in his shadow, forcing everyone to ask, who will be the next victim? Which street will become the next trap? The city lived in anticipation, and the year of fear was just beginning, leaving an indelible mark on the memory of the metropolis, which never forgot those nights. Autumn 1977. New York was still living under the pressure of fear, but now behind the panic and night alarms there was hope that the nightmare would end. The police were working tirelessly on the Son of Sam case. The team of detectives was led by Captain James Chalice, a man with a cool mind and experience in investigating the most complex crimes. They analyzed letters, studied the patterns of attacks, interviewed witnesses, and checked hundreds of streets, trying to build a map of the killer's routes. New details appeared in the case that allowed them to narrow down the circle of suspects. Detectives noticed strange coincidences. The attacker always had access to certain areas, and some witnesses recalled seeing a man with an unusual demeanor, almost oblivious to others. The police's attention turned to David Berkowitz, a quiet, withdrawn guy who lived in the Bronx. Neighbors described him as a strange person, obsessed with comic books and guns. He rarely went outside, but his car often appeared near the crime scenes. The police followed his movements for a long time, collecting evidence. The surveillance cameras of those times were primitive, but there was enough evidence to create a psychological portrait. Berkowitz looked like a typical inconspicuous citizen, but behind this mask hid a man capable of horrific crimes. On the night of August 10, 1977, the police surrounded his house. Detectives understood that the lives of dozens of people were at stake, and acted quickly. Evidence was found in the apartment. Weapons, notes, letters, and diaries, where Berkowitz described his actions and motives in detail. He did not deny his guilt. On the contrary, he confessed to committing all the crimes and spoke about mystical voices that allegedly ordered him to kill. Berkowitz's arrest became a sensation. The next day, newspapers published headlines, "Son of Sam caught. The year of terror is over." The city that lived in fear finally felt relief. People went out into the streets, discussed the news, gathered in cafes and parks, but the memory of the year of fear remained. Night walks were accompanied by caution for a long time, and many New Yorkers could not shake the feeling that evil was still nearby, hidden somewhere around the corner. The trial was loud. Society followed every detail. Witness testimony, psychiatric examinations, letters that the son of Sam sent to newspapers. Psychologists noted alarming signs of paranoia and persecution mania, which were intertwined with religious delusions. Berkowitz claimed that his actions were caused by voices that told him to kill, but the court took into account all the evidence and the admission of guilt. In the end, Berkowitz received 6 life sentences without parole. Despite this, the city long suffered from the consequences of his terror. Residents realized that fear is not only an external threat, but also an internal feeling that remains for a long time. Many families began to strengthen home security, install locks and alarms. Children were afraid to go out at night without adults. Son of Sam became a symbol of how one person can change the life of an entire city, plunging it into chaos and paranoia. The media continued to publish stories about the victims, letters, investigation, and trial. Psychologists used the Berkowitz case to study the impact of fear on society. The lessons of this case became important for the police, security services, and society as a whole. A criminal who seemed invisible and insignificant is able to sow terror for an entire year. Years passed, but the memories of Son of Sam remained. Old-timers of New York told their children and grandchildren about how the city lived in constant fear, listened to every sound, checked every shadow. The letters and stories of the crimes published in the newspapers became part of the city's history, and Berkowitz's arrest became a symbol of how even in the darkest circumstances, truth and investigation can overcome horror. And although Berkowitz served a life sentence, the shadow of fear he left behind hung over the city for a long time. New York was forever changed. Its residents learned to value caution, attention, and vigilance, realizing that evil can hide behind the familiar facade of everyday life. Son of Sam became a warning to everyone that fear, if ignored, can grow and take over an entire city until someone decides to stop it with the hands of the law.